Ms. Perry.
My name is Cornelia Perry. I'm a sophomore here at Tindley, and this is directed towards Governor Daniels. So recently I've learned that you plan on cutting teachers based upon their teaching ability and not their seniority. Yes, I agree this is a better choice, but how do you plan on grading a teacher's performance effectively?
Great question, Ms. Perry. Again, Superintendent Bennett can chime in, but this can be approached in different ways, but in Indiana, we would like to see it. We don't think we know what the very best and fairest way is, and rather than try to impose something, what Tony and I thought would be best is to ask every district, and we have almost 300, to draw up their own plan, bring the teachers together and the principals, parents, anyone who has a thought about this. Obviously, it needs to include some observation by people who really know, by the principal and others. It could involve peer evaluation by other teachers, helping decide, which ones are doing the best. It clearly needs to have some component of how are the young people doing. So tests will be a part, but never the dominant part. But when the tests are used, as I said before, it ought to be on growth. We can measure, certainly in many grades and in most classes, in which classrooms are the young people growing the fastest, learning the most. So the idea is to have every district draw up its own plan and show it to Tony and the state board. And over time, I think we'll learn, the districts will learn from each other. We may finally come to some fairly common approaches. But we hope we'll learn a lot about it. All I know is there's nothing, we couldn't do it worse than today. Nothing could be less fair than what we do today, right? The least effective, least diligent teacher, whoever that is, gets paid just as well as the very, very best, hardest working teacher. And if it comes to a situation of one getting promoted over another, how they did in class will have nothing to do with it. It'll be who's been around the longest. So we don't think we'll have a perfect system, maybe ever, and certainly not the start, but it can't be worse than today, and it's going to be a lot fairer to the members of this profession and to the students that they teach.
Ma'am, right here.
My name is Delana Ivy, and I represent Parent Power. I want to say that I'm very happy to see so many children here and youth. But one thing that I think that we really miss is the fact that this country is a democracy, yet the students have no say at all. They could tell you who's the best teacher. They could tell you a lot of things. And my question really is for all of the policymakers. How can we write into legislation? How can we, at the government level, at any level, make sure that student voice happens in every single school? We want, you said that the very first thing that we really need is voters. These are the future voters, but they haven't learned that democracy because they've been told how to learn, how to eat, what class to go to their entire lives. So that makes you apathetic by the time you're 18, especially if you go to a school that doesn't support you. So my question is, like I said, how can we truly make, I think that one way, it's not even a question, it's a statement, the one thing that we can really do is to really use the youth and the people who are in the situation, who spend you spend 180 days a year and something that you have no control over. And then by the time you graduate, if you do go to college, you have, you can make a choice, but if you don't, you become a citizen that, that doesn't vote and doesn't ask the questions.
So I'm much more optimistic than you, and let me tell you why. You look at a place like Egypt that hasn't had democracy, where folks have been beaten down for decades. And young people, they didn't ask permission, they took permission. They rose up, and you have technology, you have all these ways to communicate, and they changed that country in a few short weeks in ways that for decades people thought was unimaginable. And so I think there's tremendous untapped power and potential right now. And we can do a better job of teaching civics engagement. There's a whole set of things we can do, but young people can step up to the plate as we speak. One thing in terms of your concrete question, in terms of legislation, as we think about reauthorizing ESEA, one thing we're going to look to do with districts and schools is to survey parents and to survey students and to ask them those hard questions. Do you feel supported? Is there someone who's going to listen to you? Is there someone with high expectations? Would you recommend the school to your younger brother and sister? To teachers, is there a climate of trust? Are you respected? Is there a way to grow? And I always call, test scores are important. They're a piece of something. They don't tell you something. Test scores and all those other things are what I call lagging indicators, leading indicators. If your students are feeling, if they're high expectations, teachers are feeling supported, where there's trust, where folks are working, I promise you test scores, graduation rates will take care of themselves. So for the first time ever, we're going to do what we call climate surveys and ask students and ask parents, and I think that will drive so much of the change, opening up that conversation.
As much as I agree with that, and I do, I think we need more input from all sectors of the community about the strength of our school. I just want our kids to know, unabashedly, there will be no changes to the uniform policy. That was coming next week. I had to get that out of the way. Ms. Brown.
I was, now that Marcus has given me the opening, if I understand, Delana, what you said, I think I'm in general agreement, but I may not. You're from a group you called Parent Power. I am for that.
Yes.
My household was not a democracy. When my girls were, when they were 2, 4, 6, and 8, we did not vote, on whether they would do homework. We did not vote on what would be for dinner, We didn't vote while they were growing up. Now, I don't think schools are democracies either. I want Marcus and his leadership team to make the decision because we can hold them accountable. Now, we take surveys. Tony takes one every year. It is really important to know what students are thinking, how they're reacting. I'm with you all the way on that. But school is, as we've always, the whole concept of public education when it came into existence in the mid-19th century in this country was about, if it was about anything, it was about preparing young people for citizenship. It didn't say they're citizens now. If we thought that, the voting age wouldn't be 18, it'd be 6. So, Tindley, as I see it, is doing a fantastic job of preparing young people in their what we call formative years to be great citizens. And I don't for a minute think that the fact that the adults here are in charge of the decisions, listening and watching what the young people, how they are reacting, but making the decisions, I think that is consistent with, not adverse to the idea that when they blossom from here, like these seniors, they are ready. They are ready. They may not have made all the calls along the way. They're still wearing the uniforms that the principal wants them to wear.
Please.
They love it. They love it.
But they are ready. They're going to be very productive citizens from the day they register.
Let me push, sorry, not to, these are just big issues for me, so I'm going to come back to 2 more things. It's fascinating, I'm sure the governor's seen this, as you survey parents around the country, the vast majority of parents think their school is okay, but they think the rest of America's schools aren't. And that's not mathematically possible.
Yeah, right.
So there's this cognitive dissonance. Everybody thinks they're okay and the rest of the country has a problem. That's just not true. And parents need to be asking harder questions and demand, are you getting AP classes? Are your students really prepared? Are you ready to take that next step? And that's not happening. So parents have to sort of step into that void and really sort of figure out what are they doing to contribute to the problem and what are they doing to contribute to the solution.
Incidentally, Delana, when I said my household wasn't a democracy, I didn't get a vote either. It was my wife ran everything. But
one more example, not to beat a dead horse. Our school calendar is based upon a 19th century agrarian model. We're in the 21st century. I don't know how many of these kids are working in the fields. Not too many. So why are we still going to school 6 hours a day, 5 days a week, 9 months out of the year? Why haven't parents demanded, as they have in India and China and other countries, that we go to school a longer day? You guys don't start booing, hold tight. Why aren't parents demanding a different model? There's a complacency there. There's an acceptance of the status quo that, that needs to change. That has to come from parents. That has to come from voters.
That's fun. That's Ms. Brown.
Hello, my name is Jordan Brown. I was a part of the first graduating class from Charles A. Tindley, as well as a salutatorian. I'm currently a senior at Ball State University studying social work. My question for you is, the cost of college is so expensive. How do you plan on creating and continuing an affordable education and a successful matriculation for college students, as well as the future alumni like myself.
Okay, I'll give a quick cut, Jordan. We worry a lot about this. It's very important. The cost of college education, we all know, has been racing upward much faster than the cost of anything else, even gasoline. So as important as it is, we have to keep it within the reach of every young person. Something after high school. Won't always be Ball State, won't always be Davidson, won't always be, you know, MIT like my 8th grade friend Trevor has already got figured out. But we are working very hard at this. Among the things we're doing is to lean on our schools of higher education. I said earlier that in the K-12 system, we don't see nearly enough money being committed to the educational mission itself. Our higher ed schools have a lot of the same problem and could be, they've got too much money in the back office in overhead costs that could be going, that is raising the price of tuition and not contributing to the quality of the education. So that's one. We've tried to create new options. One of them's an online university. I don't know, maybe you've seen me on television talking about it, WGU Indiana. Extremely affordable, and the students can move at their own rate, which can bring the cost down even further. One idea that is just about to become law. 8th graders and 9th graders might want to think about this. But Indiana's going to become the first state that says that if you choose and if you can, complete your high school, as many can, complete your high school credit requirements by the end of 11th grade, we'll give you the money we were going to spend on your 12th grade if you'll take it and use it for college or some kind of higher ed. Won't solve the problem, but it'll get you. Yeah, it's too late, Mason, sorry. Get you the first few $1,000s. So we are really trying hard at this, but it is you've put your finger on a very real issue, because we know that even when Indiana has a superb K-12 system, in this world, to match up with those Korean kids the Secretary was talking about, every young person is going to need some training, whether it's college and beyond, I hope it will be, but it's some kind of training beyond high school to really realize their potential.
A couple quick thoughts. First of all, that last idea the governor talked about mentioning is you guys, if you go into public service, if you become a teacher, there's something called income-based repayment. I urge you to look it up. If you become a teacher, a social worker, a counselor, nonprofit, work in a legal aid clinic, medical clinic, after 10 years of public service, all your debt is erased. All your debt is forgiven. So it's a way to bring great talent into the field. But at the end of the day, because we have so many good choices, I think you guys, young people, students, parents, I think they're really smart. They're really savvy. And they want to get a great higher education, but they want to get value for the resources too. And where colleges are having these escalating, expenses, I think folks are going to vote with their feet and go other places. And you see some places with runaway costs. You see other places that are holding the line on costs. You see some going to no-frills campuses. You see some going to 3-year programs, same thing he's trying to do in high school, they're doing in college. And I just encourage you guys to look at all those things. And there's, we have more transparency. We're trying to push huge transparency around costs, huge transparency around graduation rates. You don't want to go to college, you want to complete college. You guys aren't just going to go, you're going to finish. You want to go to a university that's going to make sure you help finish. And so my hope is that through transparency, through competition, that where good actors will get rewarded, bad actors where the costs are out of control and the money isn't going to the students, folks will just simply stop going. It'll force them to change their behavior.
Unfortunately, we just lost the president of Marion University. I was going to have the students hit him up for a scholarship on the way out. We'll take 2 more. Vincent Williams.
Hello. My name is Vincent Williams. I'm a member of the junior class at Charles A. Tindley. My question is, do you feel that the Indianapolis public school system is adequately preparing students not only to survive but thrive in college environments, not only in Indiana, but across the country? And if not, what do you think can be done to improve that?
I think the answer is not. I would, as a system. There are places like Tindley where it's doing a fantastic job, and it's not the only one. But as a system across it all, we can't honestly say that. Now, I give the same answer in Carmel. I give the same answer in Westfield. Because to me, the standards that we have to keep our eyes on are the ones the Secretary keeps talking about, the world standards. And so even the districts where the highest percentage of kids in Indiana are graduating, the highest percent are going to college. The SATs are the highest, are not good enough. We've all got to get better everywhere. There isn't a district in this state that can honestly say we're as good as we need to be, leave us alone, we don't want to hear about any of these changes. But there are districts, and this is one of them, in which we've got a lot of work to do, in which young lives are not getting the head start that they deserve, as you are here. And that's where the Secretary rightly has been trying to focus the nation's attention. It's pretty interesting, and I'll lob the ball to the Secretary maybe to fill this in, but if you look at I think about the 5,000 worst performing schools in the whole country, across the whole country, you've got a huge percentage of the dropout problem and the achievement gap problem and so forth. And so if we can zoom in on the places that have the furthest to go, we can make, and if we can do the right things, if we could turn them each into a Tindley, we can make so much difference in a short time.
Let me just ask you, you live in the community, I don't. Do you feel your friends are getting the same quality of education in their schools that you are here?
Friends that don't go to Tindley?
Yeah. Is it close? So something's got to change, right? So I don't think you're any smarter, any more competitive, any more creative than your friends. I think you're getting a better opportunity. And for me, it's all about what we do as adults to provide opportunities and have high expectations. It's your job to work hard and to wear a uniform every day and to show up and do what you got to do. But if we're not providing those opportunities, we're doing a tremendous disservice to you, to your families, and to the community. And when I walk in this building, I saw a sense of urgency. I saw tremendously high expectations. I saw the attentiveness and a focus that's remarkable. And so I don't think nearly enough children in the broader Indianapolis community have those kinds of experiences every single day. And every day they miss out on that, they fall a little further behind. Not because they're not smart, not because they don't want to do well, not because they don't have the same dreams you do, they're not provided those opportunities. And I think there's been a complacency, not just in this city, and the governor talked about the state, but around the country. Folks have accepted a status quo that just simply isn't good enough. And so we have huge challenges, but the reason I'm so hopeful is we have schools like this. We know what works. You guys aren't doing anything perfectly, you're trying to get better, but if every child in the country had these kinds of opportunities, I'd retire and go to the Bahamas. My job would be done. So we have to push harder in Indianapolis, and again, it's not unique across the state and in school districts around the country. I ran the Chicago Public Schools for 7.5 years. We made some real progress, but it's nowhere near acceptable yet. Long way to go. So these aren't unique challenges. The more we learn together, the more we're pushing each other, the more we're not doing these all in our little communities, but looking across the country. We have to get better faster, and I think there's an opportunity there. But has the community of Indianapolis had the sense of urgency that it needs? Honestly, no.
Mrs. Hayes.
Good afternoon. My name is Jerry Hayes. I'm a proud Tindley parent of 2 students, and biologically and lots of others by adoptive.
Non-biological.
Absolutely. You're talking about how great Tindley is, and we all agree with that. My question is for the governor. We lose so many students to things like track and volleyball and all the things that Tindley cannot provide because of the resources. What is the state willing to do to make sure Tindley grows? We're so great. We want students. I talk to my friends all the time about Tindley, but there are other, students are well-rounded. I have a gymnast, and we have a gymnastics team here at Tindley, but we always didn't. And there's so many other things other than education that draws parents. What is the state willing to do to help fund Tindley so that we can grow and so that we can be well-rounded students?
Yeah. Well, Ms. Hayes, first of all, charter schools have been discriminated against severely since the beginning in Indiana. And the bill that I'm going to be signing, I believe, within the next 2 weeks is going to end that. We're going to start treating. There's been far less money per student in charter schools. They have to wait 6 months for their money, which the other public schools don't have to. They've been prevented from getting into buildings, even in the school districts. The Gary School District owns 23 buildings that they have no use for, and they're never going to have use for them. They've long since shrunk. They wouldn't even talk to the charter schools with waiting list, parents on the waiting list, about selling them. You know, I took one look at that and said, the heck with that, they ought to give it to them. Taxpayers already paid for it once, right? So we are out to balance, level the field, as people say, and give charters financially a better chance, and to have more of them, and to have more features, and thereby take on more students. And I do believe that we're going to make some headway. I'm going to say one other thing, because your question, I think, evoked it a little bit. I mean, there's not a bigger sports fan in the room than I am. But we probably overemphasize. We certainly devote more money than we need to athletics, not necessarily in IPS, but in some of the other districts around the state. And I think over time, you know, I guess the Secretary gave us the answer. We need more parents to say, those things are good, they're fun, it's part of school, but it's the subordinate part of school. First and second and third and foremost, schools have got to be about academic success and preparing young people for life. And so I think that even after we've gotten a fairer environment for charter schools, that issue that you touched on will remain, and we're going to try to work on it.